one Eberspecher Luge World Cup season is concluding amidst great alpine beauty. Next week in the German Alps, the following week in the Swiss Alps, and this week we are in the Austrian Alps, or more to the point, the Tyrolean Alps, just outside of Innsbruck. Eagles, Austria, warm conditions for today's men's singles competition. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer, pleased to be bringing you the coverage worldwide of this season's luge action. Johannes Ludwig has the start record. Wolfie Kindl has the down record. Both of them competing in today's competition. But as you see the specs on this track, 1,232 meters, one of the shorter tracks in the world, at least in terms of the lower starts, the women and the doubles. The men, it's about an average size start. Top three after run number one. Johannes Ludwig, the only one with a mathematical chance to catch Felix Lach. He's in the top three. Unfortunately, though, for Ludwig, Felix Lach still ahead of him. The winner of 8 races this season and 2 Olympic gold medals. That German is in second place. But both of the Germans are chasing the Russians. Zeman Pavlichenko, a former World Cup overall champion, 2015 world champion, looking for his first podium of the year. He's on top of the leaderboard. Here's a look at the start list, slowest to fastest, and their split differentials on the right side of your screen. The Americans will have start orders 9 and 10, with one other U.S. athlete, Tucker West, going late in the order. He's in the top 10 at the moment. Many of the countries, Austria, Germany, Italy in particular, are battling for the final spots, since only a select few athletes will represent each country at next week's World Championships. The splits are very tight. The race for the podium and the top of the podium will be a lot of fun to see. That's all coming up later. We begin run number 2 with Alex Gufla of Italy, and we begin by reintroducing my broadcast partner, Olympic medalist from Team USA, Gordy Scheer. Welcome back, Gordy.
Tim, great to be here. Watching athletes slide down possibly one of my favorite tracks when I was competing as an athlete in the sport of luge. This track is really all about letting it flow. It's all about gliding, less of a driving track, and it's just a lot of fun to negotiate your way down this thing.
You know, I've actually covered some singles races here in Innsbruck where 2 of your doubles teammates, Chris Thorpe and Mark Ramette, entered the singles competition. That's something a top man does, but a bottom man, such as yourself, rarely does that, right?
There have been some exceptions over the years, most notably mostly coming from the Italian team. The Hoover brothers were both excellent single sliders, Norbert and Willie.
Oh, that's a great point. Well, you see the time of 50.975. That's about 0.4 of a second faster than his opening run. Obviously, it was a disappointing first run because he's in last place.
Yeah, saw a little bit of lateral motion in curve 9. I also have to mention another famous back driver, this guy named Packel. I think you might have heard of him before.
He was doubles. I never knew that.
Yeah, Stefan Ilsenker. Yep.
But then again, in the 80s, into the 90s a little bit, it wasn't uncommon. Sort of like tennis, where people were doubles and singles, and then they began to specialize, right?
This is true.
Well, we'll see in a little bit Chris Mazda of the USA, who's racing for the second time today because he raced in doubles earlier, but he'll be up in a while. Here's Marian Skupek of Slovakia, 19 years old, part-time student, part-time luger.
As we're watching these sleds negotiate their way down the hill, you want to look for the athletes to be stretching out. You want to see the first point of contact with the wind is the feet. So you want the toes to be pointed, you want the head to be back, and shoulders to be back. You're driving these sleds by using your shoulders and your feet, but at the same time, you also don't want to see a lot of disruption of the air when you're driving with your feet.
He had a huge issue out of 9, still looking to recover. That can start to have a domino effect.
Yeah, and again, when you see athletes making mistakes, it's not because the track is just throwing them in that direction. They're driving their sleds down the hill.
142.629, the bottom number is the significant one if you're new to the sport. Like so many World Cup winter sports, luge is 2 runs. It's a total time competition.
This is the 8-9 transition. Just got a lot of height very early, and it just gave him some problems. And very high, almost to the top of that recently lowered roof in curve 10.
We're just getting started here, and before we get into the meat of the order, it's an opportunity for our viewers around the world to share your thoughts with us. You can find us on Twitter @LugeAnnouncer, and also email us, luge.announcer@gmail.com. Mostly thanks to everyone for tuning in and watching the live streaming week in and week out, especially those of you waking up in the middle of the night to catch the action. Here's Mirza Nikolaev of Bosnia. Speaking of Bosnia, Gordy, did you get in the sport early enough to compete on that track in Sarajevo?
Yes, I was at Sarajevo. I competed there, I think, in 2 World Cups maybe, before it unfortunately closed. And boy, what a track that was.
That had some high walls, if I remember.
Yeah, and it was really, perhaps it was because I was young and just learning to slide, but I remember, I definitely left some skin on the walls in Sarajevo.
Well, this Bosnian has been in the green since the start. Let's see if he can maintain it with a clean final few curves, and he does. 51.156, kicking the Italian out of the leader box. And he'll have the honor of standing there in front of the camera at least for one sled.
Yeah, we saw him really, really excited after his first run. Perhaps it was a personal best, but here at the start, 3 paddles. You'll see 4 or 5 in most cases. As he settled into his sled, it went off to the left a little bit, and you ideally want to see a straight settle with a little bit of a drift to the right. And here out of curve 9, you see as he dropped, the sled went up on one runner momentarily, which is not necessarily a problem, but the bigger issue is when you see ice spraying out from underneath the runners.
On course, Kasper Tornowski, the first of 2 from Poland in today's men's singles event. Earlier today, Italy captured gold in the doubles World Cup race.
It was very exciting. The first Italian victory in doubles in 6 years.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, 5-6 years since Oberstolz Gruber won in a sprint event in Park City.
Huge advantage right now for Poland, 0.4 of a second out of the Kreisel, now the 8-9 corner combination.
Interesting to listen to the sounds of all the different sleds, and the vibration and how the different athletes and teams deal with making those vibrations work for the athletes and find speed.
51.108. To your point, Gordy, when we get to San Moritz, Switzerland in 2 weeks, that's an entirely different audible proposition. It's incredible with the natural track.
Yeah, the natural ice, you can kind of see here that there's piping and refrigeration all over the place. The San Moritz track has none of that. It's basically a giant ice sculpture. And it is so incredible because the sleds are so quiet, and it just sucks up all of the noise. So it'll be interesting to see how the sleds run.
Well, that hue of yellow can only mean one thing, and that is Sweden is in the house. Svante Kohala adjusting that face shield. One big exhale before the shield goes down. 22-year-old from Lustero. One of 2 Swedish athletes on the World Cup this year, the other being his sister.
And also, along with let's see, we've got the Gleichers, whose father was an athlete in the sport.
That's right.
Koala. Are there any other in today's race?
Siblings or second generations?
Second generations.
I'll have to check that out.
And actually, these are siblings and second generation.
That's right. And obviously tomorrow we have three famous ones, Demchenko, Sugler, and Proc, all taking part in the Women's World Cup. Second generations of Olympic medalists.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think there's more of that going on than I've ever seen.
Well, it worked for Barry Bonds, didn't it?
Yeah.
For a while. 141.658, Kohala with the fastest run so far in the early going here in heat number 2, and well enough of a cushion from his carryover to take a pretty substantial lead. 0.3 of a second, Sweden over Poland.
And yeah, Sweden has the small natural track in Hammarstrand, which is coming back online. That's exciting to see. And a big effort being made to revive that facility. Used to host World Cups back in the day.
That'd be great. And Sweden, of course, made a bid for the 2026 Olympics, finishing runner-up to Italy. And it's incredible to think that Sweden has never hosted a Winter Olympics. They've hosted a Summer Games. Now Valentin Cretu on board. Cretu, 31 years old, from Sinaia, Romania. Two-time Olympian.
Maybe not the most powerful start, but certainly technically nice looking. Very nice settled, nice looking paddles, very smooth.
Romanians have made some strides with equipment, especially over the last couple of years. Of course, Raluca Stramatarau had an incredible finish at the Olympics, 7th place, which for Romania is amazing. A former teammate of yours, Duncan Kennedy, has been involved with sled building for the Romanians more recently.
Yeah, Duncan's a great technician and now working with the Canadians.
Ooh, Valley out of control down here in the lower labyrinth. He stays on board, but not without skidding over the last several curves.
Definitely problems in that lower labyrinth section, which is all about rhythm. Getting off of curve 10 and bringing the sled down to the flat. Driving, really not giving up with your drive. And here we are, just too much cross early on to curve 11, and that set up problems. Very difficult once you're offline in the labyrinth to get it back.
Well, he has the lead after all of that, and he's pounding his head knowing the lead could have been maybe a half second instead of a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah. It's that labyrinth. I remember driving it and just thinking, exhaling and breathing and really trying to catch that rhythm. So important.
Looking south-southwest there at the Alps off in the distance, Matthias Sokovic with the paddles for Poland, settles on course. This is his 6th season on the World Cup, although he's still just 24 years old.
Saw a little bit of movement in his paddles, which creates extra distance, and this field is so tight that you just can't afford to make little mistakes like that. He was also having a little bit of a problem getting his hand into the sled, and that's probably because he's probably got the sled designed to be as aerodynamically efficient as possible, and you want just everything to fit in nice and tight.
Really nice line between 9 and 10. Let's see how this sets him up for the bottom.
Looking nice, very nice.
Well, this is where Cretu had his problems, so you got to think Sokovic has a chance of the green, and he does. He gets it by 0.02 of a second. Despite being in the red, that gives you a good indication if you're new to the sport. It's not all about red and green from top to bottom. It's keeping in mind where the current leader had his or her strengths and weaknesses, right? So it's Sokovic on top of Cretu and Kohala, Poland, Romania, and Sweden, as we get ready for a Ukrainian to be followed by 2 from the United States. Andre Manzi, 25th position after run number 1. A reminder that this is the final sprint competition weekend on the World Cup, the third and final race, and only the top 15 in each of those events will make it into the main draw. So some of these early goers will have an outside chance of being in the top 15. We'll find out. Probably not, but
a nice upper section of the course so far.
Out of exit number 9 and 10. Lower Labyrinth. And Manzi crosses in the lead, 140.947, a great speed, by the way. 77.9 is the best speed of anyone we've seen so far. And his advantage is better than half a second over the rest of the field. So that's a steep uphill to the finish, Gordy. How far up that hill is that finish line?
The finish line is right at the base, and this used to be a much shorter outrun. You really had to get on the binders and stop hard, but they've modified that, and it's much friendlier now.
Run number 2 here in Innsbruck, Austria. This is the first of 3 Americans. Johnny Gustafson, some hard paddles from one of the fastest starters in the sport. And the young athlete from Messina, New York, puts in the fastest start time of 5.443 in the early going of run number 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, Johnny had some problems at the start, which is really normally his strength in the first run. So I'm sure he's feeling a lot better about this run thus far.
Green is good, red is bad. Gustafson's still in the green. His teammate Chris Masder is on deck. 0.03 of a second the advantage between curve 9 and 10.
A nice exit of curve 9. Johnny wants to stretch out on that sled and be very, very aerodynamic and relaxed.
2020 national champion. That was pretty impressive stat against such good, strong teammates. And he hangs on to his spot, a 50.372. As a point of comparison, that's about 0.12 of a second faster than his first run. And it would have put him in 18th place in the first heat as opposed to the 24th he finished.
This is the Kreisel, and Johnny looks pretty good on the sled. See his feet moving around a little bit, but this is slow motion, so that's kind of nitpicky, and it's definitely rough off of that curve 9 now.
One American through into the lead, another American ready at the top. The most decorated of the men in today's field for the United States, Chris Masder, an Olympic silver medalist, a 3-time World Cup winner. His paddles are strong, his settle is smooth. 32-year-old, originally from Saranac Lake, New York, now recently married, soon to be a father, and living in Salt Lake City.
Chris is a busy guy. He's coming off of not 1 but 2 surgeries back in March, and really constantly trying to just stay healthy at this point, and he's doing a good job. I tell you, there are few people who can slide like Chris out there, and he's certainly talented. He's got to work on getting his equipment to work right for his sliding style, and I know he and his coach Robert Fegg and the entire U.S. Luge staff are really trying to get that going.
78.1 miles per hour. This is going to be tight between the 2 Americans. Masder, by 0.04 of a second, falls behind teammate Johnny Gustafson. So to your point, Gordy, how much is the athlete responsible for setting up the sled and the equipment? How much is it a collaboration with the coaching, or is it mostly coaches?
It's yes to everything, and particularly with Chris. Chris has done a really hard press this year to find the right equipment and make it work for him. Not just this year. Chris is a hard worker and is always pressing to find those tenths and hundredths and thousandths of a second. Also, the sponsors are very important as well.
USA holding down the top 2 spots. Still early action in run number 2. Well, the green light has been shined for our next athlete, Josef Ninnis. When you get the green light, the athlete has 30 seconds to start, or they will get a disqualification. Doubles, 45 seconds, a little more at work there trying to coordinate that start. Ninnis, 39 years old, from Slovakia, 3-time Olympian.
Josef is not going to have the fastest start time. He's going to be building speed at the bottom, a lot of experience, a great driver, and one of the things to remember about this sport is that you're using your shoulders and your feet to control the sled, and being very quiet and still on the sled is also important because disrupting airflow is problematic. Anytime you move, it takes a second for airflow to kind of return to its optimal state. So that's why holding a steady position is very important. It's almost better to keep your head up a little bit than to bury it and then pick it up and bury it again.
Never heard that. Wow, Ninnis with a big problem in the finish curve, hanging on the sled. He was destined to end up in the red anyway. He can sometimes find time down below, but he was losing it throughout. And that's very un-Ninnis-like error, because he's usually as clean as anyone, if not the fastest on the hill. He's usually mistake-free.
Yeah, he's consistent, solid. He just got a little bit too early, too much cross from curves 13 to 14, and then got knocked down, and then it's kind of like what goes up must come down, and you're going to find that height eventually.
Johnny Gustafson, the leader for the United States, he's watching a big monitor over his left shoulder. You probably gather that by now, as the athletes can catch the action live. The next of the Ukrainians is getting ready. We get up here early enough, Gordy, to talk. Let's talk routine. You don't want to get that shield on too early, right?
Well, I always wanted to keep it as warm as possible, so I kept it underneath my armpit for as long as possible, and then dropped it onto my face. It looks like.
But still, the nervous athlete doesn't want to wait too long because they might be afraid they're not going to set it up, that shield on correctly, and then they'll run out of time.
Yeah, certainly. And it looks like he's waiting for the green light to turn.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Well, I mean, Ninnis just had the big skid, so it's possible that the Ice Meisters, Florian Gredla and Hansi Genevan, needed to inspect that bottom part of the track.
Yeah, perhaps. And sometimes if you get held up long enough, you may have grounds for a protest, though I don't think he would at this point. That wasn't long enough of a delay.
And this year, of course, the athletes don't have that coach hovering right next to them due to the distancing protocols. Sometimes the coach can place that jacket back on the athlete, consult with them.
Yeah, and you were talking about routine, and you know, one of the things that helps control nerves for athletes is that routine. So you get to the track, you have a protocol that you follow every single day that you get there. And when little things go wrong, you have to adapt because, you know, it's not going to happen perfectly every time. But the stronger athletes are able to just block those little changes out.
Dukash remaining in the red here. Let's see what happens up here to the finish. He is in third place, dropping behind both Americans. So Gustafson and Masner of the USA leading the way. And now they are 1 and 2 spots respectively from at least climbing back into the top 20. Although, Gordy, I got to believe top 15 in the sprint is still a long shot for the two USA athletes.
I would think so. They both had almost the same mistake on the first run, which made it pretty tough for them to advance much further than they will. But you never say never.
Good view of corner 9, where I once saw none other than the great George Hackl crash spectacularly out of curve 9 with the sled flipping out of the track.
Yeah, a spectacular moment for sure.
Now Pavel Rapilov, the younger of the two Rapilov brothers, who are surprisingly pretty close in the standings right now, and the two-time junior world champion on course. And Rapilov is one of 4 Russians. Russia has the lead, Gordy, after run number 1, Pavlichenko, but it was underperforming for all of the other Russians, without a doubt. 16th place, 19th place, 20th place. Wow.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Consistency seems to be an issue for this team this season, especially given the fact that you know, one of their teammates last year was the overall World Cup champion.
In fact, Russia has captured the overall World Cup championship the past 4 years. Twice by Rapilov, twice by Pavlichenko, and the younger Rapilov sliding across the finish, hanging on to the lead, but not without some intrigue down at the bottom.
Yeah, that was certainly an issue getting into that finish curve. Just looking okay. I'm not quite sure what happened. Just a little bit of a cross from 14 into 13. We saw this problem earlier. And the good news is that not a lot of damage is done at that point because you're so close to the finish line.
As you said, it's right at the base of the hill. If it were the relay competition, which they did stage here in November, then it's an entirely different proposition if you have that problem down low.
Indeed.
Alexander Gorbatsevich, 26 years old, from St. Petersburg. He had a 6th place finish last year at the World Championships. That was on his home track. As far as his performances around the rest of the world since then, best and 8th in Winterberg, followed by another 6th in Winterberg in that sprint race.
I feel like those paddles could have been a little bit longer on the ice. There's just not enough contact time with the hands on the ice to pull the sled forward. They just felt a little short to me.
You know, while one size doesn't fit all in the sport of luge, it does seem as if the taller athletes have the advantage with the start, Gordy.
Having long levers is definitely a help.
0.006 of a second he trails his Russian teammate. But if he can be cleaned down here below, he'll find that 0.006, because Pavel had problems. But Gorbatsevich has problems as well. Wow. This is interesting, and not entirely surprising that 2 sleds from the same country have the same problem in the same spot, right?
No, not a surprise, though I think his problems may have started a little bit sooner. That was going into exit of 11 into 12. So really his entire labyrinth was much more of a problem. So he was over coming out of curve 13 going into the finish curve.
Gorbatsevich drops 8 spots into 9th. He entered in 19th place with an outside chance of making it into the sprint. He's probably thrown that away. Now Arturs Darznieks, the first of 2 consecutive Latvians. Rositas to follow. They went in the reverse order with Rositas right before Darznieks in run number 1. Ooh, you know, he settled smoothly, but then did the tap there.
Yeah, just a little contact with that right wall. It's unfortunate when you make contact so high up on the track, because that's a problem that tends to multiply. If you don't hit too hard, you can get away with it sometimes, though.
Gordy, on his bio, Arturs is asked where his favorite place on earth is, and he says between heaven and earth. So is earth between heaven and earth?
All right, you got me there,
Okay,
Tim.
yeah. That's a logic puzzle. We'll figure that one out later. Still in the green here, the Latvian trying to catch the Russian, now falling behind. 77.9 miles per hour.
Let's see if the sled can run at the very end.
It does. 140.772. You alluded to that when the Sheiks brothers went earlier on their way to a silver medal in the doubles race, how Latvia tends to find magic. At least this season, more than any other country, we've seen them go from red to green at the bottom.
Latvia as a whole has really learned a lot about setting up sleds and how they run, and they've got, you know, a great understanding in their materials, and particularly with how the angles and the geometry interfaces with the ice.
Riks Rosītis next to go for Latvia. 17th place after run number 1. Just 0.03 of a second up on his teammate Darznieks, and more to the point, about 700ths out of the top 15 with a chance to make the sprint. Now we get a good look at what our viewer was writing in about earlier, the look at the Latvian legs, clearly farther apart than most of the athletes.
Definitely, and that's not by accident. I would say that Rick would probably want to point his toes a little bit more. We see that certain athletes, you know, just have a harder time pointing their feet, but they are definitely spread apart further. That's for sure. And that, like I said, that is not a mistake. That's nothing that the Latvians do is a mistake.
Latvia in the lead. Which Latvian will hang on to the lead? Rosītis hangs on to his spot, knocking Darznieks out by 24 thousandths of a second. 140.748, the two heat combined time.
Not a bad looking start. It's very critical that settle it can really catch people off guard. You're moving on the steels, actually, the runners actually have a bow shape to them, and you have to be able to settle straight as possible into your sled. It's really kind of a tricky motion.
Top 16 now set to come from Innsbruck. There's a good look at the speed suit on defending world champion Roman Repilov. He's been as strong as anyone in the sport of men's luge over the past 3 years. A bit of a mystery this season for Repilov. Just one podium, just 3 top 5s, and 4 performances out of the top 10. His 16th after run number 1 would be his lowest finish this season, unless he moves up. But so far, so good, Gordy.
So far, so good indeed. This sport can be so confounding sometimes. Sometimes the speed is there, and sometimes it's not. I mean, you look at contrasting fortunes. You look at Repilov and Felix Locke. You know, they've both been on the up and downs in the past few years.
Green throughout, and unlike the 2 Russians that preceded him, he handles the bottom cleanly, 140.504. So that time of 50.192 for Repilov, formerly Repilov, that was about 12 hundredths faster. I used to call him Repilov all of the time, and the public address guy still does, Gordy. But then I heard the Russian commentator last year at the Worlds call him Repilov.
Okay.
So who am I to argue, right?
Yeah, then I should correct my pronunciation. But a little rough off of 12 into 13. And then the exit, he's crossing away, which is a little bit unusual. Crossing from the right side of the track to the left going into the finish curve.
Russia out in front, the top 15 still to come. And here in Innsbruck, Austria, our top 15 now, including the first of 5 Germans, Chris Eisler. Now the bubble is where he sits. Only the top 15 make it into the final race of the weekend, the sprint competition. So Eisler will have to hold his spot or hope for help later on. He's also hoping, Gordy, to make it into the World Championship team next year, as each nation can only enter 4 sleds in men's luge. And he's probably number 5 on the depth chart right now.
Yeah, this is a super competitive team. Germans are legendary in this sport. You go through just about any weekend, and there's going to be at least a couple of Germans on any World Cup podium.
Eisler, a one-time World Cup race winner, and that was in his debut in 2015 in Winterberg. Clean lines, but still in the red. Rapilov was rock solid a moment ago. Second place, 50.302. So the Russian Rapilov officially makes it into the sprint tomorrow. Eisler will need to wait and see if he gets a shot as well.
Looking at those blue reference lines, those dots are there for our reference, not for the athlete's reference. But it helps us see what kind of line they're driving through that turn. This is curve 9. Exit, you want to see the athletes stretching out, putting the head back, and you don't want to see ice coming from under the sled, or you're cutting ice and losing time.
Fixing his face shield, grabbing those handles, Wolfgang Kindl, the Austrian rocket. He grew up in the village of Will, which may be redundant. Will just below Eagles. And now the veteran Olympian on course, three-time Olympian, all top 10 results. And he is also a 2017 world champion.
Wolfie's definitely one of the smaller sliders in terms of stature, but his results are giant.
Very stocky, and he gives up.
Yeah.
He gives up a bit at the start, but he's as fast as anyone on the lower half when he's dialed in.
Yeah, and he's certainly strong. It's just, we were talking earlier about having those long levers. Some of those taller athletes are really able to just pull longer on the start and have more contact and really dig in and create more power at the top.
This is a pretty good looking run, but he's been in the red the whole way. As I said, he usually finds speed down below, and he does. A 50.2 exactly, second fastest run compared to Rapilov of Russia, but his advantage was enough that Kindl will hang on to his spot no worse than 14th and guarantees another run this weekend in the sprint.
This is the upper labyrinth portion, just past the point where the women in doubles come on onto the track. And that's a nice looking exit of curve
9. Kindl through. It was a much different day 3 years ago this weekend when he won that world championship. Sunny, warm, with thousands and thousands of cheering Tyrolean spectators. Nonetheless, another day, another race for Wolfgang Kindl. Now on course, Moritz Bollmann, 13th place after run number 1. He had a 50.270, which means his advantage over Kindl is a mere 4,000th of a second. 4 hard paddles. Nice settle.
You got a good look at his spikes there. And every team uses different spikes and different spike layouts to maximize that power at the start. Obviously, the start's the only place where you can accelerate. Everywhere else, you're trying not to lose time, and that's a really important concept.
I know there are strict restrictions, of course, to the sled, to uniforms, to even to the booties. Are there standards for spikes?
Yes, you can't have them too long. If they're longer than 5 millimeters, then you could be disqualified. And actually, that has more to do with maintaining ice than anything else. If the spikes are super long, they were just destroying the top of the track.
That's a great point. Bollmann's been in the green the entire way. It was not a perfect exit of 9, and it pays off down there at the bottom. It's remarkable, Gordy, throughout the day, how we've seen the only little mistake being that exit of curve 9, but the red not showing up until that finish split.
It's definitely a cumulative effect. It takes a little bit of time to show up on the clock, especially when it's a small mistake. But nicely done down in the labyrinth.
By at least staying in the top 3, Bowman guarantees a top 15 finish and a sprint appearance tomorrow at the expense of his teammate Eisler, who pushes back 1 spot.
Do you know how tall he is?
He's the biggest athlete in the field right now. 92 kilos. I'm not sure what that translates into, but it's time to put up or shut up for Ronnie Yeager, 2-time World Cup race winner, not having a sensational season. Yet he would still like to be the 4th man to qualify for Austria at next week's World Championships on a Königssee track where he has one of his 2 World Cup wins.
Egger, like Kindle, has been suffering with back issues. The start is a little bit tough on the back, especially cumulatively as you progress in your career. You see a lot of athletes with back issues, and Egger is definitely among those who's been kind of suffering. It also makes it sometimes uncomfortable to actually slide.
Second of 2 races held this year in Innsbruck on his home track, as this is a transferred race originally scheduled for South Korea. And now he crosses the finish line back in 5th place, 50.375. His teammate Kindle never wants to see another Austrian do poorly, but I believe Gordy Kindle has just probably solidified his spot at the World Championships, and Ronnie Yeager is going to be watching from the sidelines. That's just, I'm not sure how he can get around that unless the coaches make some sort of decision.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with their selection process, but this was not a bad run, but also not a perfect run either. Just little mistakes here and there.
Not only that, by finishing behind Germany's Chris Eisler, Ronnie Yeager has put himself for the time being out of the sprint. Eisler is guaranteed a spot in the sprint. So it gets dramatic. It gets a lot of fun here. The top 11 still to come. The Tyrolean Alps of Innsbruck, Austria, the backdrop for this stop on the Eberspecher Luge World Cup. This is Germany's Max Langenhahn. 11th place result after run number 1 for an athlete who's in the top 5 in the World Cup standings, including the only race victory not held by Felix Lach this season.
That's an amazing statistic.
Germany swept them all. 9 for 9.
Yeah, depending on what happens today, that could change.
Langenhahn has been so impressive, so steady, still a young athlete. He's a junior world champion, just 21 years old.
Very nicely done. Dropped out of curve 9 beautifully. Looking to come middle into these labyrinth curves. If you set up curve 11 correctly, the rest is pretty easy.
That was impressive. 50.071. So not only does he hang on to his spot, he does it with the fastest run so far here in heat number 2. It's Germany leading over Austria and Russia with the top 10 still to come from Innsbruck.
You see him reaching forward on those paddles. Looks like the third paddle might have brought him over a little bit to the right, which is okay. Kind of sets you up nicely for curve 1. And here he is dropping out of curve 9.
Langenhahn out in front.
It's a little tricky getting down off of that steep section of the outrun. It's certainly taking his time.
It's the 43rd season on the Eberspecher Luge World Cup. The FIL travels around the globe this year entirely in Europe. Here's Jens Bergens, the final of the Latvians. He's the defending youth Olympic gold medal winner. Last year in San Moritz, he took gold. Second consecutive Olympic gold at the youth games for Latvia on the heels of Kristers Apeljods in 2016.
You saw him drift off to the left a little bit on this start, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to make some of that back based on his driving abilities and his sled setup.
He was a bit of a surprise winner yesterday in the Nations Cup qualifying race. Taps his foot down there on the exit of 9. How much will that cost him?
That's going to cost him, I'd say, half of a tenth minimum.
He's been in the red. We have seen Latvian sleds go from red to green in the late going, but not the case here, as Bergens can only manage the 4th best run of the heat, 2nd best overall. So for the moment, he drops out of the top 10. But most importantly, Gordy, he hangs in the top 15. He'll see another run tomorrow in the sprint.
Yeah, just carrying a little bit of direction to the right. And that's all it takes. This run was definitely not as crisp as his first run.
18-year-old Jens Bergens. We expect a great career from him. Max Langenhahn of Germany leading the way here in Innsbruck, Austria. There's a good look at Max as he settles in for how long we don't know. Tucker West of the USA will have something to say about that, as he has a pretty good advantage over the German entering the 2nd and final run. Now the 25-year-old, originally from Ridgefield, Connecticut, a student at the University of Florida, Tucker West is a 3-time race winner in his career on the World Cup. He's very quick, Gordy, at the start.
Yeah, Tucker is absolutely a beast at the start. Nicely done. It's good to see Tucker sitting in the top 10 again.
Now it's the 4th fastest start time, a 5.422.
Look at that position on the sled. He's really going for it. His head is back. Trying to hold a steady position, maximize his aerodynamics. In the past, Tucker's feet have been a little bit of an issue for him, but he really seems to straighten that out a little bit of a left wall tap perhaps going into the Kreisel, but otherwise he's been pretty smooth here. Still in the green, I like this.
Looking to give the Americans their best finish in men's singles so far this year. He has fallen into the red, and he has fallen off of the sled.
That's a heartbreak for Tucker.
Just disappointment for the Americans today. Earlier in doubles, a crash. Now for Tucker West, who was on his way to a top 7 or 8 at least. And I'm not sure what happened. Disregard that graphic. This is Tucker West of the USA with the DNF. It's just been a tough, trying season for the Americans, Gordy.
Yeah, just a little bit too much cross coming out of curve 10. And that just, he got too much height in the end as a result of that mistake in curve 11. And it just rolled him right off the sled. And there's unfortunately not a whole lot you can do to fix a problem like that. When you're offline here, it's just extremely difficult.
Unfortunately, a little bit of a walk away, a walk of shame for Tucker, but the good news, he appears to be just fine. Not injured. We will see Tucker next week at the World Championships, where, of course, he has won a couple of medals in the relay event. Now Nico Gleischer. 8th place after run number 1. Gleischer also in 8th in the World Cup standings with 1 podium, a 2nd place in Winterberg. He finished 6th at the opening race here in Innsbruck back in November.
The Austrians are always a threat on their home track. Home ice is very important, just like probably more so than a home field advantage in just about any other sport.
That's because crowd aside, you just know the course, and that means everything in this sport.
That's true. It's all about taking those runs and logging them in your memory and just knowing exactly what's going to happen. You've been through every possible scenario a million different times. It's really important.
Nico Gleischer looking very strong here. He has an outside chance at the top 5, and after that run, 50.008, not so outside. Let's see, he started in 8th place. He is about a 1/10 of a second out of the top 5, a little further if he wants to get onto the podium.
It's going to get very interesting from here on out. Looking very solid, comfortable, like he's been down this track a million times. Look at the steals as he comes off of curve 9. No ice chips, just a really nice, smooth transition off of the corner.
He's looking pretty calm for a man who I believe has just qualified for his first World Championship team. So great perseverance for Nico Gleicher, who last year sat on the sidelines each week watching his World Cup teammates take part. Kevin Fischneller of Italy, 7th place after run number 1 for the one-time career World Cup race winner. 1600ths of a second out of the lead after the first heat. And his advantage over Gleicher with the lead down below is about 500ths.
I don't know that he's going to... This is going to be real close because he did drift a little bit off, a little bit too early into the women in doubles start curve merge. A little bit early. A little bit late into curve 8. It's just a hair off all over the place here so far.
And as you've mentioned several times, Gordy, in Eagles especially, any little mistake will cost you much more than it may on some other tracks.
Indeed.
Fischneller to the finish in 2nd place. So Nico Gleicher moves up one more spot. It's Austria over Italy and Germany. That's the top 3 with the final 6 still to come in Innsbruck.
The lower labyrinth here, lines are actually pretty good. Position's pretty good. Most of the time was lost, unfortunately, at the top.
Nico Gleicher still has to watch as a couple of his teammates are getting ready to go. Kevin Fischneller through in 2nd place. Nico Gleicher with the lead, and brother David getting ready at the top. That could just as well be a live picture because the view from the back of Gleicher's helmet is very similar to the view he could see right now if he looked straight ahead. The mountains of Innsbruck as the Olympic gold medal winner off of a podium last weekend. 3 paddles and a quick settle.
I'm surprised he didn't go for another paddle, but he's probably studied what's optimum for him in his hundreds, if not thousands, of runs down this track.
His gold in Pyeongchang for the Olympic Championship amounted to his first ever podium appearance in any international senior race.
Yeah, and it took him a while to get his first World Cup win, long after his Olympic championship.
One of his goals this year was to show more consistency. He's, to be frank, not succeeded in that goal, as podium finishes have been sprinkled among crashes.
This is a beautiful run, Tim.
Sure is. Gleicher, betters Gleicher with the best run of the heat, 49.979. So the two brothers lead the way over Kevin Fischneller of Italy in 3rd, Langenhahn of Germany in 4th, with the final 5 sleds still to come from Austria.
You can see the even line that he took through the Kreisel, 270 degrees, and just drops right out of curve 9. Beautiful. Little ice cut there, but I really like his position on the sled as well.
Olympic champion David Gleicher into the lead. His brother Nico is in 2nd. And in about 90 seconds, we could be looking at a 1-2-3 Austria leaderboard because the final of those Tyroleans is getting ready at the top. This is Jonas Müller, a 2-time World Cup race winner and still his very young career. Müller captured both of those gold medals on this track to open up last season. He also has a pair of World Championship podium finishes. Now the 23-year-old from Bludenz, Austria, on course. Looked like he had a little bit of an issue trying to get those hands tucked in.
Yeah, I don't know that he will have lost a ton of time. Again, assuming he was able to generate full power and speed at the start. That's the real question. And this is very much a battle for the podium at this point, too. So, with 200ths, approximately 200ths of a second behind it, it's not over, but it's also not going to be easy. He's created a little bit of a barrier for himself, perhaps.
That's right.
The time is dropping, though.
He was only 2,000ths of a second. Yeah, he had a big issue out of curve 9, and still playing off in 10. That happened 3 curves before. And Gordy, talk about, and obviously we want to make sure he's okay, and he seems to be well in control, which is good. Going into a skeleton position.
Get across that finish line is his big goal.
Have to maintain contact with the sled. He tried, but to no avail.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give him a finish for that one.
And it happened back in 9, right? Curve 9.
It actually happened before curve 9, I think. Yeah, so he came out just with a little bit of direction. And then gets crossed away. And then, here we are going into curve 10. Watch how high up he goes. Right here, he actually hits the roof and then goes down and then comes back up and over.
It just shows that even for the home countrymen, there are challenges on this course, especially when he was so close to the podium and he maybe was doing that extra special gamble to try to knock on the door of the top 3? Or you just got to do your thing.
Yeah, I think he's just doing his thing, and it didn't look like he was necessarily taking any undue chances or anything like that. It's just a mistake, and it happens even at your home track.
Well, only 0.006 of a second separated Mueller from Fischnaller and Ludwig. Mueller just crashed, Fischnaller on course now, Ludwig on deck. I predicted podium for Fischnaller after run number 1. I am holding true to that call, Gordy.
It's a solid bet. I mean, if you look at Dominic's start, it was just rock solid, very smooth, not a lot of drama. Very close right now between he and Gleicher.
4 podiums this year for Dominic Fischnaller of Italy, all of them bronze. But he does have 6 World Cup victories in his career. Oh, he taps as well. Wow. He recovered much more quickly, but look at that. Red numbers right now. Advantage Gleicher.
Wow.
In fact, Dominic Fischnaller falls behind both of the Gleichers. It's an interesting leaderboard at the moment with 3 remaining. A pair of siblings leading a pair of cousins. Gleicher, Fischnaller, Fischnaller with 3 remaining.
A rare mistake from Dominic. Just dropped out a little bit too early from curve 9 with too much direction to the right. He wanted to hang on that curve a little bit longer so that he didn't have that kind of cross coming out.
And from what we've seen from the last 2, it really bodes well. It gives a slight bit of breathing room, Gordy, for the final 3. Because the race was really among the last couple for the podium. And now Johannes Ludwig. He has got 41 on the current leader, Gleicher. 0.04 of a second. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot more than the couple of thousandths advantage he had over the last 2 sleds.
Yeah, and Ludwig is usually a pretty rock-solid slider, but I'd say that what we've seen thus far doesn't seem to be worth much in terms of past performance histories.
Number 2 in the World Cup standings this year. It's just been a really, really consistent year for the veteran from Thuringia, Germany.
A beautiful, beautiful upper portion of the track so far.
He's just getting better and better every year. It's great to see Ludwig have such success late in his career when he could barely make the German team for the first half of his sliding career.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful run. A little bit of a cross, a little skid going into the finish curve, but otherwise a great run.
49.986, the second fastest to Gleicher for heat number 2, but the fastest overall. Another race, another podium for the man who won gold and bronze at the last Olympic Games.
It's a nice looking 9. And, you know, he really built a tremendous amount of speed at the top and actually lost time going down a little bit. His lead was up to almost a tenth of a second at one point. Here we see that little bit of a skid. The nose of the sled was pointing to the left, and he got it under control just when he hit the pressure in the finish curve.
It's Germany over a pair of Austrians with the final 2 getting ready to go. And here in Austria, it's the man of the hour, the man of the season. Felix Loch has dominated luge in ways we haven't seen in a long time. 9 races, 8 victories. If he makes it down safely right here, he has mathematically clinched all of the World Cup titles. He already has taken the 2-heat combined classic championship. He did that last week. But now no one can catch him. And again, Gordy, all he has to do is finish.
Right, for the overall World Cup title. But he's really been just sliding at another level this year. His lines have been great. His position's been great. Not that it was terrible before, but he's really just made a huge stride in terms of his sliding style. Quiet on the sled.
That was a perfect exit.
Yeah, real nice.
His
real
equipment
nice.
is incredible as well. And he is putting himself in perfect position to win another world championship next week on his home track, in his hometown. A track record,
Wow.
49.819. Not only does Loch take the lead, Loch captures the World Cup title officially, and he has put a lot of pressure on the final sled from Russia. He may just win yet another event here.
That was impressive. I have to say. I mean, just to do this, you know, year after year. You go back to, I think 2009 was his first World Championship, and just to be competitive for so long, and to just come back with dominance, it's remarkable.
Well, for many, many years, Armin Zugler's 57 World Cup race wins seemed out of reach. Felix Loch is still 10 behind that, but he's well out in front of everyone else who's ever taken part. Maybe able to catch Zugler. Now, to be fair, he gets those sprint titles as well. Zugler never had the sprint race. So Felix Loch into the lead, 1 remaining, and here is Zeman Pavlichenko, the 2015 world champion, on course.
Well, Loch has certainly put the pressure on Pavlichenko, and we'll see how he responds. I expect to see Pavlichenko just go for it completely on this run.
Well, he's known to do that, and as Gordy says, you can't really luge with your eyes closed, but Zeman Pavlichenko comes the closest to doing that.
Yeah, the advantage to putting your head back is huge in terms of aerodynamics, but of course you can't see, and you don't see all of your driving points.
Curve 9, it could be right here. Pavlichenko into the lead. The next time you see will be the finish time. Loch was perfect down here. This is not a good sign for the Russian.
Tied.
They are tied. Will it be red? It is red. 6,000ths of a second separating the German from the Russian. And for the 9th time in 10 races this season, Felix Loch is on top of the podium.
Wow. And you saw Loch holding the World Cup right there. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I didn't think he was going to be able to pull it off, I have to be honest. But, I mean, what a champion Loch is.
Well, Pavlichenko did everything he could. I mean, he was going up against a track record, which you don't see often in run number 2, let alone late in run number 2.
And that's where he lost it right there. It was the transitions between curves 11 and 12, and he just kind of slapped off a little bit, and you're looking for 6,000th, and there it is.
Felix Loch in this year before the Olympics, where he looks to get back on top of the podium and win a 3rd Olympic gold medal. That would put him in rarefied air any sport. But first things first, victory number 9 out of 10 this year. If you're keeping score, his only non-win was a 5th place in the sprint competition in Winterberg. The prohibitive favorite entering next week's World Championship on his home track in Königssee. For the rest, there were some surprising results, including the three from the USA, 18th and 19th, and Tucker West with that crash in run number 2. No Americans will be